is shining bright. Yeah, I'm Bobo and Cramer, and they're bringing the heat tonight. Talking New York sports, you know what I mean. Big boys and the kings of the sea. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Bobo and Cramer, and the pimps are loud, taking on the world, and they're never gonna stop with the New York grit. They're rising to the top, from the Mets to the Knicks. They got all the scoop, pouring out the passion, yeah, they're leading the truth. Every episode party, grab your friends and cheer. In this podcast palace, we got the atmosphere. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Bobo and Cramer, yeah, the stand of the loud, taking on the world, and they're never gonna stop with that New York grit, rising to the top. Get it loud. Tune in, turn it up, feel electric sound. With every single word, you're never gonna frown. From the Midline Giants to the Madison Square, Bobo and Cramer, yeah, this man can get it out. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Bobo and Cramer, yeah, the stand up the loud, taking on the world, and they're never gonna stop with that New York grit. They're rising to the top. Get it loud. Yeah, the best in the house is where the legends play. Bobo and Cramer leading the way. Breaking plastics loud, shout it out loud. And the best in the house, we're rocking the town. And the best in the house, we're rocking the town. And the best in the house, we're rocking the town. And the best in the house, we're rocking the town.
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. I gotta say, well, for one thing, before we start the show, I gotta make sure to clear up some confusion for some New York sports fans. If you're watching, if you're trying to watch, because of the circumstances, the way this is specifically in the New York area, because of how the Jets games be broadcast. As you know, everywhere else it's a nationally broadcasted game on Amazon, but in the New York area, for those of you in the New York area that don't have Amazon Prime, you can get the game on. It's going to be airing on Fox 5. Also, the Met game, which is scheduled to be a Fox broadcast here in the New York area, because of that, because Fox Fox 5 had volunteered to be a part of the system.
Hey, Dan, your audio is kind of cutting in and out a little bit. See if you can fix that thing for us.
All right, you able to hear me a little bit better now?
That's better.
Where was it saying? All right. Anyway, what I was going to say is that because of the Fox is doing a commitment to make sure to get the local team on TV, because the NFL has these rules that they got to have all the games, or the local teams have to be on TV, even if they're on the streaming service like Amazon. They have to be available in the New York area to everyone. So because of that, and because they were also scheduled to broadcast the Met game, it's the Fox National rebroadcast game. That's going to be on Channel 9. So just want to make sure all you watching know where to find what you watch. And I guess if you're watching both games, you're using a dual screen. You should probably have your phone as a game on your tablet or something. You're doing a little two-screen action, as I'm sure some people are doing today also, especially with the fact that the Mets are in a big playoff push right now. Just want to make sure all that's cleared up, because I can tell you I freaking had to pay attention to this info, because I'm always having to text my grandmother where to find the Met game.
Oh, boy. Well, all I asked was how you were doing, Dan, and I appreciate the response. And at least everybody knows where they can find the scheduled games tonight. And you're right, there is a lot going on tonight. There is a lot on the table. As a matter of fact, even right now as we speak, there's still a big game going on right now as the Yankees are in the final stages, in the late innings of the game against the Seattle Mariners. And it's the top of the ninth, and the Yankees are trailing 3-2 right now. we'll keep you updated and see how that game pans out. Yankees going for the sweep out west in Seattle. But, that game doesn't really matter as much to the Yankees, as we'll talk about in a little bit. The Yankees have kind of opened up a little breathing room between themselves and the Baltimore Orioles. However, not much breathing room for our New York Metropolitans, and that's where we're going to start before we get into the Jets, who are playing tonight on Thursday Night Football in a little bit too. But Dan, let's start off with the Mets. And before we even get into any of the greatness that we saw over the last couple of games, where they swept the Washington Nationals right out of New York, minus Francisco Lindor, which is a pretty big thing because he's been their MVP candidate for most of this season. But Dan, you attended the game earlier this week. Actually, I think you went to 2 games this week. And, you were on the field for the national anthem on Monday night. Dan, how was that? As a Met fan, that must have, been a highlight of your life for you, right?
Yeah, it was. I've done this before at Shea Stadium, especially growing up, especially as a little kid. Gary Carter being a family friend, I remember there were times as a little kid I remember playing catch on the field with Gary Carter. This I got because the Mets were running a promo on the ballpark app that you get reward points for different things if you attend enough Met games and spend enough money at the stadium, buying food or whatever souvenirs. I had enough reward points to cash in an opportunity to do this at a Met game, get to be on the field during the national anthem, and this is the footage of me entering the field via the outfield warning track. And this was pretty cool getting a stand on this field, and it just evokes this every time you're on a professional field like this, in a professional sports venue, you just feel the aura of being on a professional sports on the playing surface of a professional sports team. You just feel that aura, and this was definitely no exception to that rule, and you just felt it, and it was just pretty cool getting to do this for the first time I've ever done this one at Citi Field. I've also done this. I've taken tours of stadiums I visited before when I've done away games. I've done a tour. I gotta do the Citi Field tour one of these days. I keep forgetting Citi Field offers these tours now. So I gotta remind myself to do it one of these days. But yeah, I've done that at many stadiums I've been to. But to finally get to do it at my home ballpark, Citi Field, was pretty cool.
Yeah, very awesome, man. As a a fellow Met fan, a fellow sports fan, I saw that and thought it was really cool. So if you want to check out our Patreon, by the way, we're gonna have some cool stuff up later this week of kind of a compilation of Bobo's trip to Citi Field, and
yep, and I also got to say one thing. I'm definitely doing what Brendan Nimmo said at the end of the game, because I got tickets to after today's game, which I'll be watching at home, because I'll be also keeping track of the Jets game for the show, of course. I'm also gonna be at the last 3 games of the homestand. I'm doing my part, making sure the Met fans outnumber the Philly fans this weekend.
Very true, and it's gonna be, look, unless the Mets sweep, and actually I think there's a chance even if they don't, but unless the Mets sweep, there's probably going to be a celebration on the field this weekend at Citi Field, and unfortunately it's probably not going to be the Mets, because obviously the Mets are still in it right now, but if there is going to be a celebration for the Mets, it's going to be next weekend, not this weekend. And unfortunately, the Phillies are just right on the brink of capturing a division title, first division title, I believe, that they would have won since 2011. So it's been a long time since the Phillies won a division title, and it looks like they're going to be putting this one in their back pocket. Hopefully not this weekend, but it's pretty much inevitable. The Mets are in second place right now, 2 games up on the Braves, but 7 games behind the front leading Phillies. So, as good as this weekend can be, because let's be honest, I think we all as Met fans kind of moved on from our dreams of capturing a division title this year a little while ago, especially early on in the year where it looked like we didn't have a shot at the playoffs. But the Phillies have been the front runners all year, and if the Mets are gonna, right now, this is the crucial time, Dan. This is the crucial time, and I just hope the Mets can avoid having the Phillies celebrate on our field this weekend, right?
Yeah, exactly. I want them to do everything they can, beat the crap out of the Phillies, and I want the Met fans to make sure that they outnumber the Philly fans by all means necessary. I want to see the smallest amount of red at Citi Field as possible.
Yeah, you're damn right about that, Dan. And you know what enabled this series to be so pivotal, really, I guess you could say both teams because the Phillies are still trying to clinch. But the thing that really turned this, into such a huge series, especially for the Mets, is that when you look at what they did over last weekend against the Phillies, they dropped 2 out of 3. The final 2 games were heart-wrenching losses. They could have, sulked for a couple of days and struggled against the Nationals, which we've seen Met teams do in the past. And they didn't do that. Just like they've done all year, and you have to give credit to manager Carlos Mendoza for this. The Mets took 2 square punches on the chin on Saturday and Sunday from the Philadelphia Phillies. They got back up, they dusted themselves off, and then they decked the Washington Nationals right in the mouth as hard as you can and swept them right out of town 3 straight, to where right now, when we're looking at the standings, the Mets 84 and 68 are now 2 games up on the Braves, who are 81 and 70 for the final wild card spot. As a matter of fact, the Mets are tied with the Arizona Diamondbacks, both with identical 84 and 68 records, and they only trail the front leading in the wild card spot, San Diego Padres, by 2.5. Padres are 87 and 66, so it's even closer than that because it's only 2 games in the loss column, and we all know that at this time of year, the loss column is the one you really pay attention to, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. And they need to do everything they can to hinge up. And I also have to say, a shame on the people that made the decision on the networks broadcasting the games that Gary, Keith, and Ron aren't going to be doing the last home game of the regular season.
Yeah, it's true.
The only game that Gary, Keith, and Ron get of this last series is at home is Saturday, and hopefully the rest of the way, Gary, Keith, and Ron the rest of the way, especially the day we clinch. I just hope it sets up that it's still Gary, Keith, and Ron that get to be in the booth for it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's hope that Gary, Keith, and Ron can be in there on foot. The thing is, though, it is going to stink with the Mets. Should they clinch, let's keep our fingers crossed and not assume. But should the Mets clinch this weekend at some point, or I'm sorry, because it wouldn't be this weekend. So what I'm saying is, should the Mets clinch, at least we will probably have Gary, Keith, and Ron on the call because it'll be next week and not this weekend. You know what I mean? So I think most of those games, those guys are going to be on the call for.
Yeah, exactly. And from what I heard, ESPN is not doing any games on the last Sunday of the regular season. From what I gather.
Yeah, that's true because all the games. Remember, a couple of years ago, they started doing the 3:00 start across the league, so all the games start and end at the same time, so you can see them kind of play out in real time. So thankfully, ESPN has no rights to run a Sunday night game on the final Sunday of the year. So that's definitely a good thing.
And another thing I got to say about the potential clinching, I'm probably going to watch the game at Donovan's because I want to watch that moment. I want to be around other Mets fans when that moment happens.
I don't blame you because this season has just been incredible. I mean, I really can't stress enough how low my expectations were coming into this. How, I did just see, though, I do want to point out as I'm talking about this right now, history has taken place. So I do want to point out before I continue my thought on the Mets, right now, as we are talking, Shohei Ohtani just hit his 50th home run. And by the way, he did that in a game today. The Dodgers are winning 14-3. He went 5 for 5 with 7 RBIs in today's game. He stole a base, hit 2 home runs. So now he is the first pitcher in Major League history, first player, in Major League history to hit 50 home runs, have 50 stolen bases in a season, 50-50. Dan, before we continue on the Mets, what are your thoughts on the insane season Shohei Ohtani has had?
Yeah, it's wild. I just wish Dumpster Dave made an offer at him.
Yeah.
At least made an offer at him. I mean, went all in on the offer, even if we didn't sign him. I would have had a lot of respect if he made the sign, because I'm still iffy on David Stearns.
Yeah.
Like next season is gonna really be really where I decide if I think David Stearns.
Hey Dan, we're getting a lot of feedback on your thing again. See if you can fix the earpiece a little bit there.
All right.
But
are you able to hear me better right now?
yeah.
Yeah. I was just receiving a text. I had to make sure what it was. It was just someone sending me a link. Wanted to make sure it wasn't anything important.
No problem. So just to wrap up on the Mets here, we got a couple of more little things here. So obviously tonight they're playing the Phillies in the first game of this huge 4-game series. Former Met Taijuan Walker taking the hill. He's had a bad year, but we did just see him come out of the bullpen last weekend for the Phillies against the Mets, and he did look pretty decent there. But he's 3-6, the 6.29 ERA, going up against Luis Severino, the Mets reclamation project, which, by the way, hit him and a few of these other guys are a reason why I think as down as I've been on David Stearns, look, if the Mets make the playoffs, we got to give this guy all the credit in the world. I don't think we could sit here and question him, which I did. And I really was as down on this Mets team as I've ever been on any team. And if they make the playoffs, I'll tell you this much. I'm a Mets fan. You know, I'm not I'm a guy that likes to talk sports. Obviously, I do my WGBB gig radio here. I talk sports with you every week, but I'm a fan. I'm not like a sports analyst. I'm a guy that I'm a fan. I go by the seat of my pants, you know, and the way I looked at it was I was not happy with the way the Mets handled this offseason. I still think there's a lot of justification for that because they did remake a decent portion of this roster going into it. However, with all those things out of the way, we have to give David Stearns, his staff, Carlos Mendoza, Steve Cohen, even everybody on this Mets organization deserves our praise for the way this season has unfolded. Because I'm telling you right now, Dan, on May 19th, when this team was sitting 19-31 and they looked dead in the water, I never thought I was going to have to come out and have a mea culpa moment like this right now. But I'm more than happy. I'm thrilled to be doing it because I'm a Mets fan and I'd rather be right. I'd rather be wrong than right when it comes to the Mets, you know, me having doubted them, you know?
Yep, exactly. And I have to admit, I think you said something that the Mets turned it around and everything, and to turn a 180 during the second half of the.
Well, we just lost Bo there. I'm sure he just pressed the wrong button. Let's get him back in. There we go, Dan.
I recall you said the Mets turned this thing around in the second half like they have. You were going to buy a City Connect jersey.
I did. You are 1,000% correct. As a matter of fact, I did buy that City Connect jersey. I'm waiting for it to arrive, and I will break it out on the show as soon as I get it. It is unfortunately a Pete Alonso jersey, so I hope it's not out of style in a couple of weeks after the season ends. But yeah, I did do that. I was going to show it as a surprise, but since you brought it up, my friend, I held up my part of the bargain. I was furious with the Mets, but I did say at one point this year that if the Mets did turn it around, and even really, I really drew the line at just don't trade Pete Alonso at the deadline, and they didn't trade Pete. they're still in the heat of the race. So I held up my end of the bargain, and hopefully I'll be getting that soon. It said it was going to take like 6 weeks to get here or whatever. So
Yep, I know those. Yeah, I know what you mean. Those things take a while to get here. I was gifted one. I was gifted one by one of my peeps for my birthday, and it took a lot longer than I expected to arrive. But as I'm sure you've seen me on pictures and stuff. You've seen me wear it, and I'm definitely gonna be purposely wearing it that same show you are, and probably wearing my Grimace shirt underneath that jersey. Because whenever I go to a game wearing my City Connect jersey, I wear my Grimace shirt underneath it. And speaking of that, before all the games and down the stretch, I've been rubbing the belly of my Grimace plush.
there you go.
I rub the belly on my Grimace plush, which is wearing one of those little ice cream bowls that you get at the stadium when you get ice cream.
I like it. That's good luck. You're manifesting good things with the Mets, and that's what we need, my friend. And real quick too, how cool did you think it was that they installed the purple seat in honor of Grimace on Monday night, where they showed it up in the upper deck section? But I thought that was a cool idea. A lot of the times gimmicks like that kind of rub me the wrong way. But I thought that was pretty cool, because guess what? Like it or love it, Grimace throwing out the first pitch really helped turn this season around.
Yep, exactly. It's the power of the Grimace, and I have to say, I kind of wish they maybe had Grimace maybe be somewhere that maybe fans could get a little photo op with Grimace before the game, because I was hoping to find Grimace somewhere in the stadium before the game to get a photo with the Grimace. I still haven't gotten the photo with the Grimace. Anyone, McDonald's, anyone that rings this, I want a photo with the Grimace.
Well, we're gonna have to change that. Maybe we can get the Grimace on as a guest right here on Best Seat in the House podcast. We'll have to look into that and see what we could do. But yeah, man, love the Grimace, love the mojo going on with this Mets team right now. In a weird way, it reminds me of the '99 Mets with that mojo rising that they had, and you could just see the mojo on this team going in the right direction, and they're gonna need it for these last 10 games, because that's what we're down to now, ladies and gentlemen. We're down to the last 10 games of the regular season, and the Mets have the toughest remaining schedule of any remaining playoff contender. Everybody else is pretty much at 500 or well below. The Mets are at about 560 for their remaining, because all three of the teams that they're about to face are in playoff seeding or right there, as the Braves trail the Mets by only 2 games. But here we go. This is the way it's going to unfold for the last 10, as the Mets start with 4 games, their final 4 home games of the regular season against the Phillies. Then they go to 3 to Atlanta, and those 3 games are going to be huge, because the Braves are going to be fighting tooth and nail to get into the playoffs, as they've been a perennial playoff contender. The Mets have not. So let's just keep our fingers crossed the Mets don't have a replay of how the final series in Atlanta in 2022 unfolded. And then after that, the Mets will finish up the season in Milwaukee, which is kind of weird. I don't really remember any year the Mets ever finishing the season in Milwaukee. So it's going to be interesting. And Milwaukee's tough too, man. Let's not forget how good the Milwaukee Brewers are. This team is going to win the National League Central. And the only thing we can really hope for is that these 3 games at the end of the year mean absolutely nothing to the Milwaukee Brewers. So maybe they'll bench some of their starters and give the Mets a couple of easy wins.
The Mets could clinch this thing in Atlanta against Atlanta means only one thing for one of our biggest supporters of Best Seat in the House podcast, Bree. She lives in a southern state in a deep south in Braves territory, where unfortunately when she tries to watch the game on MLB.TV, it's blacked out, and she can't watch the Gary Keith and Ron feed.
That stinks. So she'll have to
She'll
you
have
know,
to she'll have to do one of two options. One, she'll be stuck watching the Braves feed, having to watching the Braves feed and having to hit the mute button on the TV and listen to the radio feed, Howie Rose feed, right? Number or number or the second option, she could wait until after the game ended and watch the game on MLB.TV because replays of the game are not blacked out. If you want to watch the game, I'm not sure you're aware of this. You could watch the game as replay, and she could.
oh yeah.
And she could watch the SNY feed of the game as a replay after the game has happened. And of course she would also have to she would also have to remember to use the you know how you could use the hide score function.
Yeah.
She would have to remember to do that, the hide score function, as I've seen some Met fans I know overseas do because of weird time differences. So she'll have to do that for the Atlanta series to watch that.
All right. Well, so she has some options on her table right now, and we have some options too. As these last 10 games are going to be a real thrill to watch and see how the Mets turn out, man. I mean, we've seen greatness in times like this when we've seen big time chokes. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that the Mets have put themselves in a good spot right now. 2 games up on the Braves. They just got to maintain it. And, speaking of teams that have put themselves in a good spot, let's turn our attention right now to the New York Yankees. As the Yankees took the first 2 games in Seattle, they trail late today. They're going for the sweep. And as a matter of fact, let me just double check on that game right now as the Yankees have, where is it? The Yankees did officially end up losing that game 3-2 to the Mariners. Unfortunately, they weren't able to keep it going. But you know what? The Yankees have done a good enough job over the last week or two to solidify their spot atop the American League East. As we take a look at this right now, the Yankees, who, Dan, me and you have been covering this all summer long, to where we pretty much have been saying it was going to come down to the final weekend of the year. Well, maybe we were off by 1 weekend because the Yankees have opened up a 4.5 game lead on the Orioles, their biggest lead in quite a long time, to be honest. And it's all thanks really to the last 10 games. For how long were the Yankees and Orioles separated by just a half game? I mean, it seems like it was about 2 or 3 straight months that these teams would trade a game or two and be within a half game of each other. Well, over the last 10 games, the Yankees went 7-3. And the Orioles, it's a young team. Maybe they're starting to run out of gas a little bit. We also saw them DFAing their closer, Craig Kimbrell, which is not a good sign for the Orioles as they need all the help in the bullpen they can get. But, isn't it crazy, Dan, that just this 10-game stretch right here in September looks like it pretty much is going to decide the American League East?
Yeah, it's just looking like that's gonna happen. That 10-game stretch is gonna decide the East. Also, I gotta say about the game that the Yankees did clinch. My brother drove to he drove to Seattle to be at the game. He's out on the West Coast. He drove to Seattle to attend the game.
That's pretty cool. You got to give him credit for that. That's some fan dedication right there.
Well, it was not far because he was on the West Coast.
Okay, but either way, still, he had to travel to check that out. So all the credit in the world to him for that. A couple of things I did want to point out, though. Obviously the Yankees weren't able to pull it out today, but Jazz Chisholm did hit another big home run. It ended up not being big because they lost, but Jazz Chisholm to me seems like the perfect kind of guy in that Yankees lineup. Obviously, all the attention, and obviously understandably so, is going to be on Soto and Judge, to a lesser extent Giancarlo Stanton, and a few of those other guys in the lineup. But Jazz Chisholm to me is a guy that I could see him going crazy in the playoffs for the Yankees. Dan, doesn't he just remind you of one of those guys that could come up in a big clutch spot and really cement his name in at least recent Yankees history?
Yeah, it does kind of. I feel like Jazz Chisholm has that Lenny Dykstra type of energy. I feel like.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be blackmailing any umpires anytime soon,
But
but
I'm just talking about the
I
playing
know,
energy. I'm just saying, saying as a
I
player.
understand. It was a joke, but Dan, totally agree with you on that. He's the type of guy that is a spark plug. That right? That's pretty much what you're saying, because that's what Lenny Dykstra was to the Mets and the Phillies back in the day when he was on both those teams. He was a spark plug, and I see Jazz Chisholm as a very similar player to that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I kind of feel the same. I kind of feel the same. At the same time, believe me, I would hear plenty about him from from one of my cousins who was born in South Florida and lives out there. He's a Marlins fan, and he was always he talked about how he would always talk rave about Jazz Chisholm, and he was kind of as I imagine with any Marlins fan like him, like my cousin down there. He's probably bummed out that they keep trading away all their stars, but he said that guy he would always say how electric of a player that is, and this is going to be a real test for a player like Jazz Chisholm, who's played in a team with very low expectations that hardly gets any fans in the stadium to on a big stage in the playoffs where there's always high expectations in the playoffs, but on a team with a fan base that always puts high expectations on their players by the fans. So this is going to be a new territory for Chaz Chisholm and a real test to see if he can handle it.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you know what? To be honest, I think outside of the injury that he sustained that kind of slowed him down a little bit early on in his Yankee tenure, I think that Jazz Chisholm has really proven just that he can raise his game to the level the Yankees need it to. And now,
I also got to say, I just realized another thing that maybe played a factor into him adjusting to that. He probably had a little help from Giancarlo Stanton, who went through a similar thing from Jazz Chisholm.
Oh, maybe that's true. It's definitely not a bad theory right there. I mean, Giancarlo definitely came from the small market Marlins, came over here to the Yanks, and has never looked back. Injuries really, once again, too, the only thing that slowed him down in his tenure with the Yankees as well. But just to keep it moving along on the Yankees here, Dan, is that now the Yankees move on to face the Oakland A's this weekend to round out their final West Coast road trip. I do have to give the Yankees credit, especially leading up the 10-game stretch that they just concluded. Pretty much decided their season, how it was going to go, at least how their playoff seeding was really going to go, because now they set themselves up where, they just clinched the playoff spot, me and you were talking about, where, your brother attended. But the Yankees now really have their sights set on the division. And if they do damage this weekend against the Oakland A's, and, depending what the Baltimore Orioles do, the Yankees have a real solid chance to clinch the division at some point next week, maybe even possibly Tuesday when they host the Orioles at Yankee Stadium. And you'd figure if it hasn't happened by then, it's going to happen at some point in that series, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, these last three games, for probably every Yankee fan who made the trip out to Oakland, this is good. You guys, if any Yankee fans that are making a trip out to Oakland or watching us, congratulations! You are going to be part of some of the last group of people to get to visit the Oakland Coliseum.
Yeah, very true. That's a good point. One of the final teams that are going to be able to visit that stadium. So yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And it's big time now for the Yanks, man. They really have to, just really get themselves right for the playoffs. These last week or two, the Yankees have played and taken care of business the way they have. They set themselves up perfectly. And, Aaron Boone and Yankees management could not be happier with how their team has performed, and especially over the last few weeks where it looks like Soto has kind of heated up a little bit, but understandably so. Aaron Judge has kind of gone into a little bit of a slump. I mean, he still comes up with big hits every once in a while, but it's not quite like it was from May to August. And it's definitely not as bad as it was in April either, when he got off to a slow start. But yeah, he's kind of slowed down a little bit. But if you're asking me right now, I'm not worried about Aaron Judge at all until the playoff starts, because we all know what you're going to get out of Aaron Judge in the regular season. I want to see playoff Aaron Judge raise his level. Maybe not like Jeter, because obviously, not everybody is Derek Jeter and can raise their play to that kind of level. But I want to see a noticeable uptick in Aaron Rodgers once the playoff starts. Aaron Rodgers. I always do that. Aaron Judge. Because, that's...
You had a little Rich Voss moment.
I did a little Rich Voss, and I'm thinking I'm getting ahead of myself thinking about Thursday Night Football in a little bit too. But hey, the one thing Aaron Judge has to do is have it doesn't have to be like the A-Rod 2009 playoff run or anything like that. But if he could just be a productive member of this team in the playoffs that goes deep, that's going to go a long way.
Yeah, exactly. He's gonna just have to. He's gonna have to keep up and not be cold. If the Yankees are going to do anything in the playoffs, he cannot be cold.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right about that, Dan. So, all right, I think that's going to do it for us on the Yankees right now. We'll shift our attention to some football. But real quick, before we start paying attention to the football, I want to give a shout out to a bunch of our fans in the chat right now, like Disabled Officer, Wisco Phil, thanks for checking in. Zensitive, thank you for checking in, and also our boy Baron K. Shout out to Baron, who's always been a great supporter of ours, right, Dan?
Yep, exactly. Great person. Help. Great person. I've actually got to meet up with him last time he was in town. Great person. A fellow Giants fan during a football season. Me and Baron are on the same side. When the baseball season we're kind of on opposite sides, but but Baron's one of the greatest people I know, and I really enjoyed getting to meet up with him and being able to share with him some movie filming locations in Queens. I showed him
Cool.
I actually showed him the Goodfellas film. Like how by my house, the diner from Goodfellas, where Robert De Niro, where Bob, where he's answering the phone and he's saying, "Tommy got wet. There was nothing we could do about it." Where that diner was, that's not far. That was not far from my house. And I showed him some filming locations. I showed him the Unisphere, where it's seen in Men in Black was filmed. And that thing that was like the what I'm talking about, that thing that was like that was supposed to be the UFOs in Men in Black.
Yes.
I actually showed him that, and he really appreciated that, and I thought that was really nice. That was really great. That was really cool to see that he appreciated those filming locations. And there was another filming location I wish I would have remembered that I didn't realize until a couple of weeks. Someone reminded me until like a week later and Barry, I'll show this to you next time. The cemetery from The Godfather is not far from my house. The very cemetery where they filmed Don Corleone's funeral scene in The Godfather is not far from my house.
Very cool. Very cool.
So now I joke. I say, yeah, the final resting place of Don Corleone is not far from me.
Very cool, man. And all right, yeah. With that, let's shift over to that to some football. We'll talk about that football team that you and Baron both share right now. Let's start with your New York Giants, who are off to a rough start right now. They're 0-2. They lost a tough game to the Commanders on Sunday, 21-18. This is a game that was definitely well within the reach of the Giants to win. Their defense played their asses off. You actually saw some life at a quarterback, Daniel Jones, who, let's be honest, a lot of people kind of left for dead last week and especially during the offseason. And he really proved that there is something to Daniel Jones. Is he, the greatest quarterback of all time? No. Is he a quarterback that's going to go back and sling 300 yards a game every time out? No, that's not his game. But if you could get him an effective running back and a decent offensive line, Daniel Jones can be productive and in the right system. And we saw that, you had Singletary come out, have his first really nice game as the Giant, their new running back who's replacing Saquon Barkley. And he went out there, 16 carries, 95 yards, moving the ball, right, Dan? And look what we saw from your quarterback, man. 16 of 28, 178 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. As a Jets fan, I was thrilled with Aaron Rodgers' numbers last week, against the Tennessee Titans. And what Daniel Jones did was pretty much what Aaron Rodgers did. Rodgers was 18 of 30 with 175, 2 touchdowns, no picks. They basically had the same game. So you have to give Daniel Jones credit,
Yeah, I have to give credit to that. I just really, it just all those things I saw that happened, positive with the Giants offense, really made the outcome of that game sting really bad. And especially, and I just really feel like we would have won that game had we had a kicker that game. And I just feel like the Giants did a horrible roster construction, not having a backup kicker.
Well, you know what, Dan? The thing about it too is, and I get what you're saying. That's definitely a good criticism, not having a backup kicker. The thing is, I feel like a lot of teams don't necessarily have a backup kicker. I guess it would be the punter under those circumstances. But the weird thing about this is that this is the second time this has happened to the Giants in a year. If you get burned by it once, you can never get burned by it again. Even if, you have to figure something out and get teach a guy, to kick, to place kick. Have your third string tight end learn how to kick or something. Figure out a way that you're not in the same situation that you found yourself last year in. And unfortunately for the Giants, this is the second game within a year they found themselves. Now, I don't know who you want to blame for it. Daboll obviously is the coach. I don't know if it's the GM, but whatever the deal is, and the thing is too, maybe you should just sign a second kicker. And if Graham Gano is even on the borderline of, can he play? Don't play him. Play the healthy kicker. There's got to be a solution to it because the way that played out, the Giants hamstrung themselves. They tried to have the punter kick the extra point first. That didn't work. Which, by the way, Dan, hold on right now. Sorry to interrupt the football, but Pete Alonso has hit a first-inning 2-run home run off Taiwan Walker, and the New York Mets have grabbed a 2-0 lead. I just saw the lights flashing out the corner of my eye. So right now, as we are calling this live right now, Pete Alonso, an opposite field 2-run shot off of Taiwan Walker, and the Mets lead 2-0 in the first. So, as we wrap up right now, we'll keep you guys updated with that. But just to wrap up on the Giants here, Dan, when you have a injury to the kicker like that, what do you think the Giants' plan this weekend is going to be going into it? Are they going to sign I'm not even sure if they did sign a backup kicker or anything like that, but would you risk going into Sunday's game with just Graham Gano as your only kicker?
I think they got him. I think he might be on the physical unable to play list, just because a hamstring injury. I mean, even though it's a different sport, I've seen Keith Hernandez talk about it during Mets broadcast. How a hamstring injury is not an injury you want to mess with, and especially with a kicker, I think that's kind of it's a real key thing. You don't really want to you don't want to mess around with that, especially if you're a kicker in football. So hopefully they have one on the practice squad that's able and ready to maybe to suit up for the game.
Yeah, I mean that's what they're going to have to do. You cannot risk going into this game and losing your kicker, right off the bat like they did. You just knew the Giants were in trouble. As I was saying before, Pete Alonso beautifully interrupted me. They lost Gano on the first play of the game, the kickoff. He was gone after that. They had the punter try to kick once. He missed that. And after that, every time the Giants scored a touchdown, they were going for two. They were pretty much forced into it. And even late in the game, when it was 18-18 and the Giants were driving and they were in field goal distance, they could not go for a field goal because they just didn't have the ability. They had no kicker, nobody to kick the field goal. So that bit the Giants in the ass there. And of course, they end up losing by a field goal. So that was, that's about as tough a loss as you could take for the Giants, especially with how rough of a year they had last year. You really wanted to get off on the right foot this year, and 0-2 was not what the Giants were looking at. However, I will say this, Dan, there were a couple of bright spots from that game. We already talked about Singletary, and we already talked about Daniel Jones. How about the number 6 overall draft pick from last year, Malik Neighbors, who, by the way, is number 1 on your scorecard, but number 6 in last year's draft class. 10 receptions for 127 yards. And boy, this kid was fighting for every single yard out there. On the 4th and 3, you saw him just trying to break free from the defensive back and reaching forward, stretching for the extra yardage. I think the Giants really got their hands on a damn good kid here. What do you think?
Yeah, I just think, he really is finally showing his worth. I just feel like that I called it right at the money when I said week 1, I feel like Malik Neighbors was just getting acclimated to playing in the NFL with the high stakes of a regular season game. Like everything actually counts. I feel like he had to get like adjusted to that, and I feel like he adjusted to that very well in week 2. Now this weekend, I believe they're. Oh yeah, I forgot. I missed. But anyway, he's got to now see how he does, how he can have a repeat performance week 3.
Yeah, well, Dan, look too. I have to. I don't think he started slow either, because that debut he had, I forget his exact numbers, but it was somewhere along the lines of like 4 catches, 65 yards, right around there. Now, it's not going to knock your socks off, but that actually, when you compare it to and me and you did this on our Patreon show, which, by the way, if you're watching right now, we appreciate us. We appreciate all the support from you guys. If you want to support us even more, we got a Patreon for $5 a month, patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. We do all Jets and Giants post-game shows on there during the football season. So, if you want to help us out, we appreciate it. If not, thanks for watching. And but either way, when we were on there, me and you were breaking down former Giant first-round draft picks that are wide receivers and how they fared in their first game. And, if you look at it, really the only guy that outdid Neighbors since, 1997 was Odell Beckham Jr., who had that big game in his first game. But Malik Neighbors was number 2 in production on that list.
Yeah, exactly. I have to give a lot of credit for Malik Neighbors. He just showed off a little bit signs that it was going to be happening, and he showed it week 2. I was right on the money. And
absolutely. And Dan, and with that, now we shift our attention to next week for the Giants, which is this Sunday, as the New York Football Giants will be going against the Cleveland Browns Sunday at 1 p.m. Giants are 0-2, Browns are 1-1. when you look at a team like this, Dan, you could see the Browns and think to yourself, well, maybe this is a game to be had, as the Browns have been, kind of a, an easy opponent for decades at this point, outside of maybe a couple of years here and there. But the Browns are a feisty team. Now, is Deshaun Watson what he was in Houston as a quarterback? No. We've definitely seen a major regression from him as quarterback. But that Browns team is still dangerous, and you always have to watch out for that Browns defense, led by Myles Garrett, who can really rip up the Giants' offensive line on Sunday if they're not careful. And they have a bunch of stingy defensive backs, too, that you don't want to get too pass happy against these guys, because they could start turning the ball over real quick.
Yep, exactly. I feel this one, the Giants maybe need to rely on a lot of run plays to win this game. Also, I got to say, this game, I'll be watching it from a unique location, which will be where I'll be filming our Giants post game. I'll be literally outside, well, not in Citi Field, but outside. You'll see Citi Field in the background, as I'll be watching this game before attending the Mets game, because the way it worked out, the Mets are playing Sunday night and the Giants are playing in the daytime. So I'll give you that. Maybe I'll see if there's any people I know that are driving that want to maybe comment in. Maybe some people I know that are also Giants fans, if they also want to talk a little bit about, maybe pop in on camera for a little bit, talk about the game a little bit too.
Absolutely, that'd be very cool
before I enter Citi Field. But yeah, so
yeah.
I'll be watching. I think thanks to the magic of my phone, I'll be able to watch. I'll be watching the game via the Fox Sports app.
Very cool, Dan. So, we got that to look forward to, with a big game for the Giants on Sunday, and obviously, like you said, big game for the Mets on Sunday night as well. So, with that, I think we'll turn our attention to our final topic of the evening: the New York Jets, as they get ready for Thursday night football. Now, they are coming off a very feel-good win. If you're a Jets fan like myself, the Jets, who are now 1-1, defeated the Titans, who fall to 0-2, 24-17, in a big victory. It was their first of the year. Technically, Aaron Rodgers' second as a Jet. Yes, believe it or not, the opening night win last year, where on 9/11, Aaron Rodgers only played 4 snaps and then got hurt. That does actually count as his first win as a Jet, because he technically started that game. So it's not like football. It's not like baseball, where you can get credit for it. He started the game, he gets the win. So Aaron Rodgers, now 2-1 in his career as a Jet, after the opening Monday Night Football loss this year in San Francisco. Well, once again, we find ourselves in prime time. That's right. Aaron Rodgers says this is going to be his 4th game as a Jet. It'll be the 3rd of those 4 that are played in prime time. It's prime time for us, but not so for our boy Baron, who is informing us in the chat right now that he's watching the Jet game at 10:15 a.m. our time. So the Jets have to win. And yes, my friend, I definitely agree with you on that. The Jets definitely have to win. Baron's staying up till 10. Baron's getting up to watch the game at 10:15 in the morning. Can the Jets at least do him a favor and win the game?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know personally Baron, of course, doesn't really have any rooting interest in it, because he's a Giants fan like myself. But I'm sure he's watching the game, probably eating some brunch, because that hour, that's like brunch hour. So if he hadn't ate breakfast yet, he's probably enjoying some brunch while watching the Jets game where he is.
Very true. And what's good about brunch, Dan? It's not quite breakfast. It's not quite lunch, but it comes with a piece of cantaloupe at the end. So, as they said on a great episode of The Simpsons back in the day, if anybody remembers.
I remember that one. and I gotta tell you, that's not a bad way to have brunch. Enjoy some brunch and watching some football.
There we go. And man. So and look, I was talking about Daniel Jones and his good game, as Daniel Jones went out there and, pretty much had the exact same game Aaron Rodgers had. 18 to 30. Rodgers, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. They really haven't taken the kid gloves off of Rodgers yet. They haven't taken the training wheels off, so to speak. They're still kind of easing him into it, which makes total sense. But, I kind of expect them to unleash a little bit tonight. The Patriots might have their confidence puffed up a little bit after they upset the Bengals in week 1 and basically took the Seahawks to the mat last week and ended up, unfortunately for them, losing in overtime. But when you look at what the challenge the Jets have in front of them tonight, this is not the Patriots teams of the past. Now, I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I see some Jet fans out there really tooting their own horn, saying, it's going to be like a 38-10 game. Now, I hope it's that, but I don't think that. In my head, it's probably going to be a little bit more closer to what we saw last week in Tennessee, like a 24-17 game, maybe 24-14, something like that. But, what are your expectations tonight for this 8:15 Jets-Patriots home opener tonight, Dan?
I expect the Jets to win, to be able to make key defensive plays in what could be a high-scoring game. Also, I have to say, if the Jets win this game, a little recommendation to Aaron Rodgers. If the Jets win this game, Aaron Rodgers should go to maybe because I know the NFL scheduling is maybe difficult, but if the Jets are home the weekend of Comic-Con, maybe go to the first day of Comic-Con dressed as Negan from The Walking Dead, because Aaron Rodgers does look like Negan. I don't know if you've taken a look at him.
You're right.
I feel like he could really kill it with a Negan cosplaying as Negan if he were to do that.
Yeah, you put a baseball bat in his hand and he's a dead ringer for him.
Yeah, exactly. I almost feel like he could have been a stand-in if possible. But I feel like I just think he needs to go to Comic-Con dressed as Negan if schedule permits it. I just want to see what that would look like, because I noticed these pictures. I don't know why I just didn't notice it. Maybe I noticed it now because I see a lot of Jets fans posting stuff, because I got followers on Twitter that are Jets fans. That if I noticed that he looks like Negan, and he should. I feel like Aaron Rodgers just has that kind of a thing about him that he'd have fun with it and cosplay as Negan.
I could definitely see that, and you know what, Dan? You said if he wins, he should be doing this. If they win tonight, he should do it. I think you're 100% right, because guess what? If Aaron Rodgers wins tonight, he can do, in my opinion, whatever the hell he wants to do. Because look at this. This is the living hell I have endured since one of the greatest moments of my Jet fandom, when they beat the Patriots in the 2010 divisional playoff game up in New England. The Jets knocked them off and moved on to the AFC Championship game for the second year in a row. Unfortunately, a second loss in a row, but we'll get to that later. But the Jets, ever since that game, have played 26 games against the New England Patriots, and they've lost 23 of them. They are 3-23 since that game where the Jets knocked them out of the playoffs. And it's been a living nightmare. It has been a living nightmare over the last decade plus, obviously, nearly decade and a half at this point. So, Dan, first off, how crazy is it that that's an actual stat, 3-23 against a divisional opponent? That never happens in football, especially. And when you think about the ramifications of if they actually do win tonight, you wonder why Jet fans have been salivating for Aaron Rodgers for what they traded for 500 and some odd days ago. Why we've been salivating ever since that day in April 2023. If they win tonight, that's the reason why.
Yep, exactly. Finally, I mean, you guys deserve it to have something that you guys can celebrate about tonight. And I kind of have to give you a little heads up, maybe a little advance warning, because I know eventually you'll get around to going to the Football Hall of Fame. Maybe one of these days we need to do a road trip episode. Part of like do like a road trip series where we visit each of the Hall of Fames of the big four major sports. If we ever do a Football Hall of Fame episode, you might end up getting a little bit of a PTSD seeing a Bill Belichick hoodie on display in the Hall of Fame, which there is, by the way, on display in the Hall of Fame. And I'm not gonna give you nightmares by showing you the picture that I snapped, that I took a picture of to show to one of our great supporters, Will Noonan, who over in Boston, a great supporter of Best Seat in the House podcast. I thought it'd be a nice little thing to share with him some of the pictures of some of the Patriots stuff they had in the Hall of Fame. But just a little bit of warning that is on display in the Hall of Fame. One of Bill Belichick's hoodies that he became known for.
Absolutely, that'll scar me. Seeing Joe Namath in a Rams jersey will scar me. John Riggins, a former Jet, who left and went on to greatness, that'll scar me. Jason Fabini, the Hall of Fame tackle that everybody associates with the Steelers now. The Jets drafted him, I remember. So there'll definitely be a lot of things that scar me. But that aside, I would love to do something like that, Dan. No doubt about it. That would definitely be very cool. And by the way, if you're interested in anything like that, just last month, Dan visited the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and on our Patreon, we have a whole video of him going and checking that out. So do yourself a favor. If you do, hey, there we go, right there.
Yep, I'm wearing this. This is a shirt I bought at the Hall of Fame, as you can see here, the front of it, and as you can see here on the side of my hat, there's a little pet. I bought this hat. It has like the little Hall of Fame logo on the side of the hat, and on the back of this, I don't know if you could see the back of my shirt has the names of the giant players that are in the Hall of Fame. Were you guys able to see that on camera?
Not really, but it's okay.
I know. I was trying to show people the because I know that this is kind of cool design on the front of the shirt, but even the back of the shirt has a cool design. How it has the Hall of Fame logo, and you see it has the names of all the Giants that are in that have been enshrined in the Football Hall of Fame. It was I just saw this at the gift shop, and I definitely had to get a hold of that. And like I said, I bought you a shot glass that has, similar to the Giants one that I have, that has the Giants logo on one side, and then the other side of the shot glass has the Hall of Fame logo. I got you the Jets version of that shot glass when I went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yes, you showed me. Thank you very much, buddy. That is awesome.
And we definitely got to figure out a way to give that to you in person next time I see you. Hopefully it'll be during a Mets playoff viewing gathering somewhere at a bar somewhere.
You got that right, buddy. And we'll definitely be getting together soon, especially if the Mets are in the playoffs. No doubt about that. Now, we're pretty much at the end of the show here. Just want to wrap up real quick. There is this breaking news that just came out in the last few minutes that Jets middle linebacker C.J. Mosley, he's dealing with a banged up big toe. He's listed as inactive for tonight's game. To be honest, as important as C.J. Mosley is to the Jets defense, and as much as they do need him for a big game like this tonight, I think this is the right move. You don't want to rush Mosley back because you don't want him to further injure himself and miss more time. So you know what? Just like the Mets are doing with Lindor right now, let him just sit back, take it easy, and no matter what happens in tonight's game, after tonight, the Jets have pretty much a mini bye as they have 10 consecutive days off until they play their next game. So that will give C.J. Mosley plenty of time to rehab his injury and get back. And it just makes a lot more sense than rushing him back for a game in a short week tonight,
Yeah, exactly. No need to rush him back. You don't want to be in a situation where it becomes oh no, like that little video I sent you with parroting how infomercials can make something that can be done without a struggle. You don't want anything like that to happen. That you want to cue that "oh no" sound effect.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's about going to do it for us tonight, Dan. Before we get out of here, do you have anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure. You got my my Twitter account Bobo103NYC, Instagram Bobo7118DK. It's also the same username I Threads. My YouTube account, one word, Daniel Curlin. There'll be some plenty of videos. I'm going to be uploading some content there on my YouTube page soon. Also, remember, subscribe to Patreon. You get not only our show live one day ahead of everyone else, you get also our Patreon shows, our football wrap-up shows, and Bobo's Trackside Minute, which I've had to do a lot of things in that time to film Trackside Minute. You get my Trackside Minute wrapping up all the action that's been happening with the NASCAR Cup Series. So you got plenty of content. Plus, more importantly, that $5, you're helping support the show, and definitely get the word out.
Absolutely. We appreciate everybody that has subscribed to our Patreon already, patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. And we appreciate every single person that hung out with us tonight in the chat. Thank you so much, guys. This is pretty cool. We usually don't do shows like this live on YouTube, but because due to unforeseen circumstances, we were not able to tape last night, we decided to do it live tonight and hang out with everybody live. So thank you so much. I want to give a shout out once again to everybody.
Yeah. There's one person I got to give credit to. One of the big I got to give credit to one of my Met fan brother and sisters, who I refer to on Met social media. I refer to them as the Met fan family. A member of the Mets fan family who refers to herself as Lisa G. Contacted all her Mets peeps if anyone wanted this extra tickets to a Met game, and I replied, "Sure, I'll definitely take the ticket." Big thanks to her for offering this ticket that she couldn't use, and that's how I got this. That's how I got to sit so close, and I gotta give credit when one of my Met fan brothers and sisters does something nice like that.
Very cool. Shout out to Lisa G then. And yeah, that's going to do it for us tonight. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer. You can check me out on Twitter at CramerNY. Check the show out on X at BSith_podcast. Don't forget Instagram too. We're also on there, Best Seat in the House podcast. So I want to thank everybody once again. I'm going to be hanging out with Baron. He's wearing his Tebow jersey. I'm going to be wearing my I was going to say Favre, my Aaron Rodgers jersey. And let's get ready for some Thursday night football, everybody. Thank you once again for hanging out. For my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin, I'm Rob Cramer. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast. I will catch you later, everybody. Have a great weekend. Let's go Mets and Jets, Jets.